Finance Committee meeting of January 28th, 2016. And I just want to remind everyone that this meeting is being broadcast and recorded for replay over Lunenburg Public Access. Any communications from the public? I see none. Any communications from the committee? Our mailbox downstairs was empty, so I have nothing to report. Anyone else?
Just, we still have 2 vacancies.
Yes, we do still have 2 vacancies. And we barely have a quorum this evening. We're authorized as a committee of 7, so our quorum is 4. We made it. Okay, first order of business this evening is the capital plan review. And I know we have some members from the capital plan committee with us this evening. Dennis Manoni?
Yep. Good afternoon. Evening, I guess. My name is Dennis Manoni on the Capital Planning Committee. There's got a list of the other committee members there. It's a group that worked really well together this year. We started meeting back in September, early September. Took a little different approach this year. We brought the big departments in, if you will. We brought the school, the DPW, police, and fire, and we asked them initially, before we dove deep into this fiscal year's capital plan, give us some long-range thoughts on what might be coming down the pipe, not only the 5, which we traditionally do, let's go 10, 15, and even 20 years out. So it was a good discussion. It was open-ended. They brought in some different things, fire trucks, big ticket items that we might be seeing 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the line. So committees are really trying to take a big picture look at some of that stuff and how we can slot things in and anticipate things that are coming down the pipe to try to figure out how to slot that in and how we're going to end up budgeting that and present that to the committee. So we did that, and then we came back for our normal scheduled meetings shortly after that. We did about a week or 2 of that, and we brought each of the departments in. We went through their scenarios and what they would request for this fiscal year, asked them questions. They gave us feedback and pictures and a whole bunch of stuff on why they thought that particular item needed to be funded for this year. Some of them were regulatory, some of them were safety needs, and various along those lines. After that, we met for about 2 weeks. We categorized all of the projects requested for this year. We came up with a rank order, if you will, based on what the committee thought were the needs of the departments, taking into consideration the fiscal needs of the town and also how they would fit in and prioritize against other projects within that as well. So you'll see in the next slide that we just, these are some of the projects. Obviously, we're not recommending everything gets funded. I'll kind of jump to the last slide, just so you know. It actually came to $1.6 million was the total request. So as you can see, we're going through some stuff. So we did our due diligence, even though obviously we kind of knew deep down we're not going to be able to fund 1.6. We gave all the projects their due access and talking. So I won't go into individual projects, obviously. It'd take too long. If there's a particular question somebody has, there's myself and other committee members here. We'd be happy to go through, but I'll kind of just give you the highlights. So facilities, number of projects and facilities this year. We went through and we ranked those. Obviously, all the projects are important to the department heads in the town, but we do have to dwindle them down at some point. Next up was DPW. We went through and ranked those particular ones. You could see where it says priority ranking. That's where you'll see we started to rank those, and then the last slide will rank them all in order, so we'll be able to see them. But we wanted to break it down by department. So some of the stuff we looked at for this year was the Townsend Harbor Road Bridge. We also looked at the catch basin cleaner attachment, a DPW 351-ton truck with a plow. That was an interesting request. I'll kind of get into a little bit of that right now. The thinking was the school department really needs a truck. Their truck's not going to probably make inspection this year. It's all rusted out. So we talked to Jack. So this is almost a 2-for-1. We're going to be able to purchase this truck, be able to hand-me-down that truck. Gets a little bit less use on the school side. In the school, that fills a school request. So that was the thinking along those lines. Also, you have the Max Dump 6-wheel plow and sander. That's going to be purchased. That would get into the fleet. And the current one that does the plow route now, that's going to get hand-me-down. And the catch basin is going to be attached to that. So that's an older truck, something that needs to be rotated, but it'll suffice as a catch basin vehicle. So that was kind of the hand-me-down. So as you can see, where the committee and the department heads and the town manager were always thinking about how can we squeeze another dollar out, how can we get a couple more years out of these vehicles, and that seemed to be prudent at the time. Fire department's request, you'll see them there. Just the pickup truck, again, in bad shape. They use it quite a bit. It's rusted. It's got electrical issues. And so that was a 2003, so that was timed in the rotation to get that one funded as well. Police, we get the standard cruiser replacements. We've done a good job over the last, I've been on the committee, I think, 3 years now. We've done a good job trying to rotate the police. As you know, when you buy the police car, you don't get it right away, even though it's funded at town meeting, and then fiscal year July 1, you get it. It still takes about another 6 months to 8 months, sometimes a year to get it. So the ones that we got last year are going to be in the rotation shortly this spring. So it's important to keep the rotations up, because if you skip a year, it ends up coming back heavy the years to follow. You'll see the 4-wheel drive all-terrain vehicle. We've ranked that as 12. It's just an all-terrain vehicle. We've got a lot of conservation land that we have now. They made the case, and the residents of the town, people go out in snowmobiles and various other ATVs of their own. So it makes it difficult for the police to get out there and police those particular areas, because when they get to the gate, they have to get out of their cruiser and they have to try to trace on foot. And I don't think that won't work out long-term. So, it's important. It wasn't ranked necessarily high, but it's something that we have to keep on. And that's been a request that's been on for a couple of years now. Bulletproof vest. This is to replace the offices, 29 offices bulletproof vest. They actually custom fit, and they actually wear down after a while. That was interesting to know that when the officers wear them for a certain period of time, it degrades the armor, the sweat and various stuff, so they do have to get replaced. So that was up for replacement. You'll see at the school request, you'll see the asbestos abatement. We're working towards abatement. We did that a big chunk last year. It's our hope that we can do another chunk this year as well. So that's in there as well. We have intercom and phone replacement. The phone system currently right now is very, very old, needs to be replaced, and also the intercom. You could see pictures. We have pictures of them they've got a computer to handle voicemail. That's a kind of a workaround, and the intercom doesn't necessarily work all the time. So there's also ALICE training, which is a big thing now as far as letting people know in the school with communication. If there's an intruder, what are we going to do? Where are we going to go? So that was the second time on the request. That was on there last year. Now you'll see the DPW, the pickup truck used. They were requesting a used truck, but we're going to be able to hand-me-down the DPW one, so that'll take care of that. Library, you'll see some requests there. Also, town departments. The town IT also requests a certain amount of replacements, similar to a cruiser concept in that certain laptops, servers, printers need to be replaced 3 to 5 years. So he presents a rotation schedule for us for that. And that's been pretty, you'll see it a little bit low. Usually it's around 60. It's a little bit lower this year because a lot of the stuff is getting incorporated into the new high school, and some of that other stuff can be hand-me-down. So that was kind of a nice bonus for us this year. So you'll see the capital request, it came out to 1.6 and change for the total request, and we dwindled it down and prioritized it to 781,000. And on the last slide, you'll see kind of the rank order as a kind of a easier way to kind of look at all the projects. That is about it. I'd be happy to field any questions or...
I noticed on the full list, some items were marked as a priority 1, others were marked as a priority 2. Does this fund all of the priority 1s and none of the priority 2s?
Yes. Yep, the last slide kind of ranks all of the priority 1s. The other ones, we went through and looked at them and how important they are. If they didn't make the top 12 in this case this year, then they weren't going to make it at all. And we wanted to rank the top 12, knowing that there's a little bit of flexibility in the capital money. It could be a little bit lower, could be a little bit higher, what comes in. So this kind of gives us, okay, if you only have 600,000, okay, where do we draw the line in the sand? So that kind of helps us out in the finance committee, and the town manager kind of helps out. What would be next in line? Either way, because the numbers are still coming in.
Right, so I'm not sure that the committee actually has this presentation.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not seeing that.
Well, it's on this side and then this side.
Without the
Where'd you get
priorities.
that?
This is on the other side of this.
Which
Is this-
which schedule is that?
This is what you had up first. What was just, it was handed out. I'm sorry.
was
We didn't
handed
hand
out.
it all the way down,
Thank
sorry.
you. The committee has a copy, just the chair doesn't.
I'd like to keep you guessing.
Yeah, I think on the back of that page, it kind of ranks them of what we thought were.
Right.
So these are all priority 1s for us, but then we ranked them again, kind of 1 through 12. So we thought in this case, the cruises, out of these 12, the cruises were the most important kind of, and then so forth and so on down the line.
I do have a couple questions.
Certainly.
The library, reupholster furniture, and et cetera, with the triple X's, is that because they didn't have a cost, or is that because they no longer identified it as a need, or in the first section under facilities maintenance?
Yep. Under the facilities,
Under,
yeah, I believe at that point, they didn't submit
they didn't submit, okay.
submit and present.
The other question I had was, given all of the vehicles that are going to be replaced, the repurposing was great. What I didn't see were trade-ins on the police vehicles. Do they become part of a rotation somewhere, or is that something that may be determined later on, that there would be a trade-in value associated with
Yeah, from gathering from talking to the police chief and kind of knowing the history, being on the committee, which is one good thing, you kind of get a little history. What they try to do is they'll strip them down and they'll kind of use anything that they can. Usually the new cruises, all the outfit and the fitting of the cruisers is a little bit different. There's LED lights this year. What they will do, though, there's not much trade-in value typically. He always looks to trade them in, but typically there's not, because they're high mileage. He'll either hand-me them down to maybe another department that may need them, or he kind of keeps them in his rotation for emergency purposes. So, God forbid, if he's got to call some people in for a big incident, which he said has happened before, he'll put somebody in that cruiser. And he also uses them to go to trainings. So they don't beat up. If 2 or 3 people have to go to a training, they'll take that. They won't get mileage by the town. They'll just take that. They'll go to the training and bring it back. That way he doesn't have to take a frontline cruiser or a secondary cruiser out of the mix. So there's not much resale value, but he does try to squeak out and get some parts out of them as well, is my understanding.
Which actually, it was, all of a sudden, I was also just thinking that, do we have a policy around the actual, when something gets to the end of its useful life, getting rid of it? Or documenting that something's been gotten rid of? or-
We don't have anything like that in our financial policies, but I would assume we do in other areas of the town management. Kerry, could you comment on that, please?
We do have a process that we follow for surplus of all municipal equipment or vehicles.
At what point is it determined to be surplus?
We don't have That's on a case-by-case basis. That's something that we don't have documented. I think that a future policy in that area, I think the auditor might have even mentioned something like that. So that's something we would be looking at, but right now it really is just a case-by-case basis.
Right. All right, well, that was, I guess my question then goes also back to anything that we see being replaced, we assume is being repurposed somewhere, and somewhere down the line, something is being taken out of service. But we just don't know. Okay.
Yeah, but I think Chief Marino included a letter in his request, and he discusses the rotation of vehicles, and just as you described it. And I know he's come before this committee in the past and explained it.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. And I see in the long-range plan that there's 2 vehicles this year, 2 next year. I think there's even 2 the year following that, and then we go to a single vehicle in 2020.
Right, I remembered that from the...
And then again in
right.
2021. So 2 vehicles a year for 3 years, then 1 vehicle a year for 2 years, and then back into the 2 vehicles a year schedule.
Thank you.
What was the discussion about the fire chief's request for the engine 4 replacement? Obviously, that's a major capital item. We've talked in the past about trying to time the purchase of our large-scale fire apparatus so that we're only paying for one at a time.
Yep.
And generally, we would be borrowing for such a large sum. What was the discussion with regard to that item?
Yeah, exactly kind of how you stated. We're looking at that. It definitely needs to be replaced. The notes in the request, go through in detail why we should be replacing it sooner than later. And us as a committee, we're really trying to figure out, okay, where can we slot that in? Ideally, we would have a fire truck coming off the books, if you will, and then replace it with an additional fire truck so the debt kind of evens itself off. So, and that's part of our long-range plans is, okay, if we push this off a year or 2, are we then done with that debt, and then can we, slide the other one in? So that's kind of where we're doing it. And we don't want to, as we're looking out too, is, okay, if we've got a fire truck and we've got another big piece of apparatus from another department, DPW or school or something, do we then put those together that particular year and go before the town to get those 2? Does that make sense? And so that's really the long-range planning is, do we stack up a few of those and kind of go for it on a certain year because it makes sense in the way we're borrowing, or can we space them out over time? So we're definitely having those discussions, and I think we're going to take the same format as we did this year, is bring them in a little bit early and take a look at those big ticket items. But yeah, those are the...
Please.
I just wanted to mention that right now we're still financing 2 of the fire trucks. In fiscal 17, we will be making our last payment on a fire truck that was purchased in the early 2000s. So in fiscal 18 would be when we were talking about potentially funding the first request. So probably engine 4 in fiscal 18. And then in fiscal 20, we have the next vehicle, the next fire truck coming off. So in fiscal 21, we would be looking at the next fire truck. So that would be slower than the replacement schedule that the chief has put together, but based on our existing debt service payments, that's the soonest that we could do that.
Thank you. On our master plan list, we had some items that did not get a priority. For example, the Turkey Hill Middle School repairs. They show up on the list of all requests, but they don't show up on the prioritized list. Is that because they didn't receive even a number 2 priority? Would you say those are like priority 3?
Well, and I think from that perspective, it wasn't really, we didn't really dive, the school and ourselves, we didn't really dive into that. They just kind of wanted to get it on the radar screen, if that would be a good terminology. So it was originally in 17, it's still on the master plan, but it's not in this particular capital project.
So is it fair to say that item's been pushed out?
Pushed out, correct.
And I noticed in the school section, there's a schedule that shows that this has been pushed out annually since the report was issued in 2007. And the cost to fund it goes up each year, that we can't fund it due to inflation. I assume it's due to inflation.
Sure, and it's part of one of the long-range plans, and how are we going to present that to the town in the future? Is it going to be part of a bigger plan? The school, I believe, met this year, which was one of the things we were waiting on. It was, what's the useful life of that particular school? And they're saying, correct me if I'm wrong, they're saying about 15 years, they'll still be able to have the life of that building for 15 years. So where does it make sense to do a major repair or critical repairs within the capital or coming to the town? Do we do it over the next 3 to 5 years so that we can extend that? Is the school going to get, a new school going to get torn down? Are we going to do a major renovation? So those are all the things I think the committee and the school department need to work through over the next year, and then on moving forward as well.
Right.
Some stuff to add.
Mr. Chairman, there's kind of 2 factors we looked at when we discussed Turkey Hill. One is that if you look at the large project of rehabilitation of Turkey Hill as it now exists, it's a multiple-year, multiple million-dollar project. And we didn't feel that it fit within the current capital plan annual. Given the numbers we tend to use, we feel that if you look at the multiple yield, multiple million, you have to look at it as a whole project and make decisions both in terms of funding and when and if relative to the life of the building, et cetera. So we've had that discussion. We've had good first discussions. It needs to be a separate discussion all by itself. The second factor we look at is any of the remedial work that needs to be done, either in response to regulatory edicts or our wishes. We have a very short window every summer to do this work while the school is down. So we have to, and they have been very good at trying to piece projects in a way that they can address them in chunks that can be done in the summer months, or I guess in any downtime, but most of the time it tends to be summer months. And that's what we have looked at in the short term. But the whole Turkey Hill project is a bigger issue that certainly the capital planning committee has an opinion on, but I think it's an issue that the finance committee and the school board need to look at as well.
Similar to the pavement management plan.
Correct.
Sometimes we have to step out of our regular capital, if you will.
Correct.
And take a different approach.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Thank you. Other questions?
Yeah, I got a couple of questions about some of the vehicles also. I see the fire department has a pickup truck in here for $70,000. Yet the DPW has 2 1-tons in listed for $53,300. I think $70,000 for a pickup truck is excessive.
And the committee concurred with that statement. We were a little sticker shock too. We said, well, why is it 70,000 for a thing? And we actually got a detail. I don't have the email with me, but we actually got a detailed breakdown of exactly what it is. It's a 4x4. It's got to get outfitted with all the fire apparatus and some of the stuff that'll go along, and it's really itemized. And we went through with a fine-tooth comb exactly line by line, and unfortunately, it does come up to the 70. We said, well, why can't you get one for 40 or 50? And going through all the stuff they need in that vehicle to do what it needs to do for them, it does come up to the 70, and we were as shocked as you. And we could
So
probably
is it,
provide
are
that
they
in email.
putting a different body on it, or is it still a pickup truck?
I don't think I put to that email. So, yeah, we've got the email here. So you got the base truck, it's a 1-ton four-wheel drive diesel, which is a little bit more expensive. So that, it just comes with the basic stuff, and then you get the add-ons, obviously. So that's 38,000, I'm gonna round these off a little bit, so
Yeah.
it's 38,000 for that. The utility body with the spray and liner is 9,500. The snow plow, which they do their own plowing there, is 7,500. The warning lights and sirens, 7,000. Two-way radio installed, 1,000. Lettering, 1,000. Subtotal there is 64,000. They added 5% for price increases for the models for 2015 to 16, because even though it may get funded this calendar year, the model, when they actually buy, might be another year older or newer, if you will. So it came to 67,929, so we rounded it off to 70. Now, any monies they don't use, it does come back. If they can get it for 65, they can't go above, but if they can get it for 65, that money still sits in the capital, and Kerry puts it back in and gets regenerated, so.
Okay. I still find that excessive for a truck, for that truck. I think they could downsize that to a more economical, more financially responsible vehicle.
I mean, and I think it's a truck with maintenance that you're gonna get, 10, 12 years out of it. I think you're gonna get, the other one, I don't even know if I have that. Do you know, Jamie, how old the other one is?
It's 2003.
03.
So you're gonna get, 10 or so, 12, 15 years out of it.
All right.
But we have a catalog here too of all the breakdowns as well, of pictures and things, so. We asked that same question. I don't disagree with you, but I just, and we said, hey, can you give us some detail? And he provided detail, which is great, and that's what it came up to, unfortunately.
All right.
Other questions? So I'd just like to go back to the priority list. So if we fund all of the priority ones, we're at 780,975.
Correct.
What if we want to move that either up or down? If we were to move that number down, is it fair to say we would start with priority number 12?
Correct.
And remove that?
Yep.
Have the priority twos also been prioritized so that if the capital number were to go up, we would know which items would be the highest priority?
If we get past 12, we would be ecstatic, and we would call an emergency meeting and re-rank those. I mean, we've kind of ranked them, but we haven't officially put it in.
We don't even have that much, right? No, plan for the worst, hope for the best.
Exactly.
That's fair. I would imagine that even 781,000 is a stretch.
Yeah.
That's a bit higher than what we've spent as a trend the last few years.
Yeah, we've been between 600, high six, somewhere in that ballpark, so, we were taking that into consideration as we were kind of going through it as well, to see where that would fall. And the projects that we felt that were needed this year, that's where it kind of fell, and we know there's going to be some movement, obviously, but.
Right. Mr. Toll?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I think that in past years, we used the same methodology, and we didn't get more, we had to trim. And the one point I just wanted to make is that the committee took the exercise of saying, if we had to trim X dollars, would you go to the less expensive items? Would you jump around? And we came to a very conscious decision that said, no, we would probably eliminate priority 12 if we had to, but then if we had to go cut further, we would just reduce priority 11 by whatever we had to cut and try to do as much as we could in that abatement area with whatever money we had left. In other words, the point I'm trying to make is the 145 on priority 11 is not an all or nothing. If we got 130 or 120, we'd recommend that they try to do whatever they can for that amount of money, as opposed to say, if we don't get 140, we get nothing, and we go up to the next item.
And that's already a multi-year project anyway, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
The abatement.
it's a three-year project, right?
Yeah, thank you. Any other questions from the committee? Any questions or comment from the public? Mr. Luck?
Carl Luck, 50 Sunset Lane. On the vehicles, and maybe we don't know tonight, and we can get the information. I was just wondering how many police vehicles we have in the fleet.
That's a good
I don't
question.
think we have
I'm not sure
that.
I know offhand. Is that, it would appear to be 8.
8.
Weird.
Appear to be 8. Do we have any idea how many are patrol vehicles versus other functions?
That's detailed in the police section. Yes. So we have a marked vehicle scheduled for replacement in 2021. We have 2 vehicles, number 207 and 210, that are in this year's budget. We have a marked and an unmarked budget in vehicle in next year's budget. We have an unmarked vehicle in 2020, and we have 2 marked vehicles in 2019.
So the cycle, so it's about a four-year cycle to cycle through all the vehicles, replace all the vehicles?
It looks to be a 5-year schedule.
5-year cycle.
The police chief would be the better person to answer that.
It's why I didn't know if anyone here could answer.
Yeah,
so
I'm just
fine.
reading the 5-year schedule that he gave us, and it looks like that's what the rotation would be.
Great. Just one other question that just sort of jumps out, funny numbers, because I'm sure that maybe a story, it's just pure coincidence, but the 2 items for the school, the phone system replacement and the intercom, happen to be $22,000 each. Is that just pure coincidence, or is there some story?
That was the quotes that they,
Yeah.
that was the quotes that they received, and I think they put out like a 3% on it for inflation and things that go on. And whatever they don't use, then we end up getting back,
Yeah,
which is
okay.
good. If we underfund anything, they'd have to come back and resubmit it again, and it's hard with the bidding process, because you don't know exactly what it's gonna come into, but it is kind of odd. It came in at 22,
that's all it jumped
22,
out.
22.
Thank you.
They split them up. You're welcome.
Anyone else? I would just like to thank the committee for bringing this information together. I know it's a lot of work. We've got a binder here, an inch thick, representing all the information that you had to collect and sift through and review and prioritize. And thank you for
Thank
your
you.
effort. Appreciate it.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
I do want to say that I do appreciate the longer outlook too.
Range.
That really helps me. And I think that was great that you folks were able to work through that.
Great. Next on the agenda is town manager reports. And I know we've had a couple of reports this week. Kerry, perhaps you could recap those for us, please?
Boy, we had, it seems like there was a lot of stuff that came out this week. Yesterday, the governor's budget was released, and I'm not sure if you've had an opportunity to review the local aid estimates for the town of Lunenburg, but they were very favorable, particularly in the area of Chapter 70, which is our education funding. I have reason to believe that the legislature might look differently upon the distribution of the Chapter 70 fund that the governor looked on, the way that he viewed it, but he basically provided $20 per student in increased funding in his budget for fiscal 2017 for most communities, but communities that are over effort or over target, and we'll learn more about that next Thursday at the education funding workshop that we have scheduled. So anybody who's interested in learning more about how that works and what it means for Lunenburg, I'll give a plug for the workshop that we're having next Thursday evening at 7 o'clock, which will be televised. But because Lunenburg is an above effort community, the governor has made provisions for that in his distribution of Chapter 78. There aren't a whole lot of those communities in Massachusetts, and I think, as I said, the legislature might be looking at different educational funding priorities. So it would be wonderful if we receive that much in Chapter 70, but I'm not sure that that's going to happen. In terms of the other aid, there is a 4.3% increase in the unrestricted general government aid. That is the largest increase in that category in a number of years. Before anybody gets too excited about that, that's $42,000. On an account that was cut by $300,000 back in 2006 or 2007. And even with this additional funding in fiscal 17, we're at about that 2006 or 2007 level. So we're still, while it's great news, we're happy to receive the additional income. It's not a lot of money, and we're still well behind where we were back in 10 years ago at this point. All of the other accounts are level funded, but there was some good news if the numbers are to be believed, and we're still looking at them, but our choice tuition assessment is projected to go down significantly. So we're still looking at that because the numbers, the choice and charter tuition assessments and the tuition reimbursements that show up in the initial cherry sheet are not always reflective of reality. So we've been burned by that before, but we'll look into that. But hopefully those numbers are right and we'll see some relief. And so that means there would be a decrease in number of students choicing out of Lunenburg, so that would be welcome. I will have my initial budget recommendation to you in about a week, and I think I'll do what I did the last time that I sent it out early, is give you the spreadsheet and continue to work on the narrative. But if I release the spreadsheet, then the departments know and they can prepare their presentations to you, because they need to do that pretty quick after my presentation. But the full presentation will be on February 11th, and then the week after that you'll start with individual department review or presentations of the budget. We did hear on health insurance, well, we don't have our actual renewal. Maya last week announced what their range for renewal would be, and I don't have that right in front of me, but it's about 4.5% to 12.9%,
12.8, yeah.
with the average about 8.9%. I had a meeting yesterday with our health insurance advisor, and we took a look at our last 24 months of loss, our claims history, and it wasn't good. It was worse than it was a year ago. And a year ago, we were capped at the maximum renewal, which was 10.9 or 10.09. And so I have reason to believe we'll be at the cap again this year, which would be 12.9%. I had originally estimated 7%. The superintendent had estimated 8%. But my 7% is not as bad or as far off as it sounds, because most of the health insurance budget that I account for is for retirees. We have about 1/3 active employees and about 2/3 retirees in the health insurance that I account for. And the retirees are on a calendar year basis. The traditional aged retirees, the early retirees are anybody who retires from 55 to 65 is under our active plan. Anybody who's not eligible for Medicare would be under our active plan, so we do have a few of those people. But most of the retirees that are 65 and older and on Medicare supplements through the town, they're on a calendar year, so and their renewal has typically been a little bit better, which means a little less costly. So my 7% is that's for the 1/3 of the employees that are on this cycle. So I don't think we're too far off, but it's still more than what I had expected. Our Public Employee Committee, which is our health insurance agreement, is up for renewal July 1st, so we will begin to meet with the Public Employee Committee in the very near future to talk about how we're going to deal with health insurance for the next, it's a 3-year agreement like a collective bargaining agreement. So we're hoping that we'll be able to make some progress there. We have some opportunity to make some adjustments or to negotiate some adjustments in co-pays and still be under the GIC level of benefits. So we have some flexibility. We don't have a lot. We've taken advantage of a lot, and we had a number of good renewal years, and we're just in a cycle where we're not having good renewals. So as you heard from the Capital Planning Committee, they're recommending about $780,000 worth of spending. It's all cash. There's no financing proposed. We don't really have the ability to finance any of this without impacting future years. And we finance some of fiscal 15 and some of fiscal 16. So we're trying to get that paid off so that we can start tackling some of the larger capital items. But you may recall in the target budget, there was $600,000 set aside for capital.
Yeah.
So this 780 is well above that, and we'll see, what we can do to include that. I certainly would like to get some funding, if not all of the funding, for item 11, which was the abatement, asbestos abatement project at Turkey Hill. But that's essentially, if you looked on that sheet, items 1 through 10 cumulative, I believe, were $619,000. So that's the cutoff there. I'm not sure I have anything else on the budget. I did just send out some, before I transition, the town accountant finance director provided me the second quarter financial reports, which I have not sent out yet to you. I will do that, but I can tell you that the current fiscal year is looking very good. The expenditures are on target with the adjustments that we made at the special town meeting. So we're running a little high in veterans benefits, but we made an adjustment at special town meeting. So we're not running higher than that right now. We are running a little high in legal fees. We may need to make an adjustment there. We've got 2 land use cases, one that just went to trial last week, so that's fairly costly, but hopefully we're close to the end of that. Revenues are looking very good. Our property tax collections were just under 50% at 50% of the year. Our local options meals tax is running at about 70% of the estimate at 50% of the year. We don't have our motor vehicle excise commitment yet. That should come out next week, so we're pretty close to receiving that. Everything else really is running on target. Ambulance receipts were a little bit higher, so I think we have some flexibility to bump up some of the revenue estimates for fiscal 17 a little bit higher than how they were presented when we talked about the forecast about a month ago or so. So, in snow and ice, we're doing well. We're not going to save lots of money. Most of the budget is for materials, and believe it or not, we've had 10 sanding events this winter. And so I don't expect that we'll be turning back anything, but we've had a number of years where we've had to make up a deficit, and hopefully that won't be the case this year. The other thing I wanted to mention that I just sent out today is we took bids on a bond issue earlier today, a 2-part bond issue. One was for the school, a small portion of the school financing. Let me just, probably be easier if I just pulled up that email that I sent so I can get the numbers right. Oh, maybe it's not going to be that easy. So we did a Series A and a Series B. Series B was the school project. We received the lowest interest rate on that issue that we've received on all of the issues related to the school project. So that was exciting news. But I think the more exciting news was the Series A, which was a refunding of the 2004 general obligation bond issue. We have 9 years remaining on that bond, and it is callable. So when they're callable, we look to see if we can get a better interest rate than we have, essentially refinancing your home. That's what we look to do with some of our debt, and we put that out to bid, and we did even better than what our financial advisor estimated, and we will save about $180,000 on the remaining 9 years of that bond issue. So about $20,000 a year, and I figured it out. It was $4.25 per household, and I know that's a cup of coffee, right? That's what coffee
Daily.
costs now. People sort of make fun of me because I get excited over little things, but it's $4.25 that you didn't have yesterday, right? And cumulative, or on an annual basis, $20,000 or $180,000. I think it's a big deal. So we're always happy to be able to find opportunities to refund bond issues. For us, it's been few and far between, but I think this is the second time we've been able to do it, and I think it's a nice thing to do for the community.
I think actually it is a very good thing, even though it's a small amount on a per taxpayer basis. It's $180,000 for the town.
Yeah.
And we're able to do
Little bit
this
helps.
because of the good fiscal performance that we've demonstrated and our ability to maintain AA plus stable outlook in the bond rating, which is tremendous.
So I wanted to pull up that interest rate, okay, so I have it. Just because I think this will mean something to people, especially since most people, I think, are familiar with interest rates if you purchase a home. So the Series B today, we borrowed $3,295,000. And this is sort of the remaining amount that we needed to borrow on the school project without getting into any contingency spending. So we're not over borrowing, we're not borrowing for any of the contingency, but this is for the project. In the interest rate that we received, we had 5 bidders, 3.173287% on something. It's not 30 years at this point because we're a few years into it, but if you think about what you would borrow if you were to buy a home and what interest rate you could get for $3.2 million, that's bigger than a jumbo loan, right? So you pay more for a jumbo, but 3.17%, that's pretty impressive. Certainly, our rating has something to do with it. I didn't ask the financial advisor who else was in the market today. Sometimes that has something to do with it. But we got 5 bidders, so we had some good competition, and I was really pleased with those results. So that will be presented to the Board of Selectmen next Tuesday to formally accept and authorize the issue for both Series A and Series B. So I'm not sure, did I miss anything else that I sent out to you?
Just the bond rating.
Okay. That I should mention that. One of the things that we have to do every time we go out to bid is we have to refresh our bond rating, refresh your credit rating. And in order to do this, we have a rating conference with our financial advisor and with the rating agency. And the rating agency will ask a series of questions about the town's finances and the local economy, and we'll look at the audited financial statements and then review them and make a recommendation to a committee. And so we have a bond rating, which is AA+, and then they add another qualifier, which is either a stable outlook or a negative outlook. And when we went into the rating conference, our financial advisor cautioned me and Karen, the finance director, that we may be looking at a negative outlook. We had a stable outlook, and he mentioned his concern because we have incurred a lot of debt recently relative to the school project, and I was being optimistic as I try to be, because this is the smallest bond issue that we've done related to the school issue, so it's no surprise to Standard & Poor's that we have a lot of outstanding debt because they've been rating us all along. And fortunately, we retained our rating with a stable outlook. But if you had the opportunity to review the report that came with the rating, you would see that they have different categories that they look at, and debt is one of them, and they make mention of the fact that we have a lot of outstanding debt at this point in time. I think to bring it down to your own personal level, you have a great credit rating, and you go out and you buy a new vehicle, and if you finance it, your credit rating goes down. Right. And as you start paying off that debt related to the car, your credit rating goes back up, and the same thing happens with a community. And so one of the things they look at when you have a lot of debt is what is your amortization rate, and for us it's pretty high, it's pretty aggressive. So we do have a good payoff. I can't remember what it was. I want to say maybe close to 50% in 10 years. Mm-hmm. So that's something that they like to see, that you're chipping away at that debt.
There was one comment in the report that our debt management policy limits debt service to 3% of expenditures, but we're currently exceeding that level. Could that be a misinterpretation on their part? Because in our policy, I think we separated excludable debt
Yeah.
from
Yes.
non-excluded debt. And the 3% threshold, or target, if you will, was for non-excluded debt.
Yeah, the regular debt.
Only, just the regular
Yeah.
debt.
So one of the difficulties is when they do these ratings, they tell you, okay, we're going to give you a draft of the report and you have an hour to review it. And so and then they release it. And then there are no changes. Not that they change anything in that hour that they give you. I've never had that experience, but that was something that I didn't see in the hour, and I did see it after. And I also saw there's a note in there about some additional borrowing for school that is not right either. So unfortunately, those things didn't get corrected, and we can definitely work on getting them corrected the next time around. But that's the trouble. They give you such a short turnaround for the report.
Is it worth, or is it worth taking another look, excuse me, at the policy to take a look at the excludable and non-excludable debt together so that that doesn't have to be changed? Or is it better that we have them change it based on the policy that we have?
Well, I think the report should be reflective of the policies.
Right.
But they're not going to change that report at this point in time. The next time around, and there will be a next time in the not too distant future, because we'll have at least one more borrowing associated with the school project once the audit is complete, if not sooner. So we'll make sure and get it corrected at that point. It obviously didn't impact our rating, but the report should be accurate. And I did have a conversation with the financial advisor and asked, why wouldn't they look at excluded debt versus non-excluded debt? Why would they get so anxious about having so much excluded debt because you go through a process to have the voters approve it? And he said they really don't. They don't look at it. They look at it as a ratio of total outstanding debt to your debt limit, total outstanding debt to your annual budget, and they don't really make a distinction between whether it's within 2.5 or excluded.
Well, I would just like to say congratulations and thank you. As I said before, maintaining such a high credit rating is nothing but good for the town. And I know that Karen and her staff and you and all the members of the team do an outstanding job throughout the year, following the policies, displaying good, tight management of the budget, and that's why we have the rating that we do. Thank you.
And I would also like to thank the Finance Committee and the Board of Selectmen, because I know you both have worked diligently on policies for the last year, the Finance Committee longer than that, and those policies made a difference in how they viewed the credit. They make particular mention of that. They made a difference with the auditors too, and you had that presentation. So the policies are they mean something.
Great. Thank you.
Actually, going back to, and you may not have any idea about this yet, on the, when we talked about government aid, we didn't talk about Chapter 90 at all, but I'm also just wondering, is Summer Street still, potentially in the mix for?
It is more than potentially in the mix. Summer Street is funded in the TIP, the Transportation Improvement Program, in fiscal 2017, next year.
It is?
It is. Yep.
Excellent.
Chapter 90 is level funded in the governor's proposal.
Nice.
I just had a question about the health insurance. You said it's a 3-year contract,
Yeah, we typically do a 3-year contract.
so that cap that you were talking about, is that per year, or is that divided by 3?
The cap is an annual renewal, so that 12.9% maximum is the maximum renewal for fiscal 17 alone.
So they look at that every year, that can change?
They do, yeah.
Okay. So we're not locked into that up for 3 years?
Oh, no, we don't want to be
Yeah.
locked into that for
Yeah.
3 years. So the agreement that we're negotiating is an agreement between the town, the employer, and the employees, and it outlines premium contribution split and deductibles and that sort of thing. But the actual dollar amount changes annually based upon the health insurance renewal.
Okay.
And we have done 3-year contracts. We've had a lot of success in being able to reopen the contract when we needed to get some additional changes to bring the cost down. So the PEC has been very, very good about opening the contract. We haven't had to do that in the last couple of years, but we did in the first few years that contract existed. I think probably annually we made some changes.
Okay.
Anything else for Carrie?
No, thank you.
Carrie, thank you.
You're welcome.
Next on the agenda is minutes. I believe we have minutes from our last meeting on January 14th.
That is correct. If they pass muster, I have a final draft that you can sign.
I was
If
not
they don't,
present for that,
I have
so-
a correcting pen.
They looked pretty good to me.
Yeah, I'm happy to make a motion to accept the minutes as presented for January 14th.
John?
I will second with some relief.
Thank you. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? None.
Are you a no vote?
Abstain.
He's a no vote.
Yeah,
Okay.
Right.
I wasn't present.
Budget goals and opportunities. Any discussion for this evening? I think we are now officially in budget season. We've received the capital plan this evening. We'll receive the preliminary budget next week. We'll get a presentation on
2
that
weeks.
the next week following.
Yes, yes, yes.
We'll have our Chapter 70 workshop coming up. We will be meeting every Thursday until the end of March. So I'm happy to entertain any discussion on budget goals and opportunities, but we're off and running at this point. Okay? Committee reports?
I do not have a report.
I will, Sewer Commission met on Tuesday night. I see Mr. Luck is here if he wants to summarize as chair.
If you're going to make me, Carl Luck.
Yeah.
We went through, Barb, the business manager, presented the preliminary budget. We've got it in place. It looks pretty good. We're working with Karen on the debt side. I think the operation side looks very doable. We just need to look at the debt side, like we had discussed last year, to make sure that over the long term, we stay positive in terms of our retained earnings. So it was a good session, and we should be able to give you something in advance of the presentation. So I think we're in very good shape for the budget.
Nice.
Thank you.
I met with Jack earlier this week. I was a little concerned about the snow and ice budget because we had increased that by $25,000 last this year, and so far because of the, mainly because of the application of sand and salt on the roads, he's gone through a little over $165,000. Plus, he's still, it does not include some bills we are waiting for from some private contractors. So it looks like we probably managed to consume the $275,000. My concern was that, I know that the law says we can't, we should, we can deficit spend this, and they don't want us to just load this up. So we're trying to get as close to 275 as we can. And it looks like we're safer than I had thought. And the Public Access Cable will meet next Monday, so I'll be at that meeting.
Okay, great. The School Building Committee met with the Board of Selectmen last week. Unfortunately, I was not able to attend. I know they had a spirited discussion. There are some members that are very concerned about the notion of contingencies and whether we should be spending that money or not. I did not get a chance to speak at that meeting, but I can tell you my position is that we should not spend anything that was value engineered or not included in the original project. We should do our best to hold our spending to the town share that was originally in the plan, not the total amount of the budget that was approved. That's just my personal opinion. But that is the position that I'll be taking with the School Building Committee. And then the building reuse, we haven't met since our last Finance Committee meeting, but we are planning to make our presentation to the Board of Selectmen on Tuesday evening, February 2nd. So we're just putting the final touches on our report, and we'll be presenting it next week. And that's all I have. Ongoing business, we'll be hearing about the pavement management plan shortly. I don't think we have any update at this point on the other items. We do have a number of meetings coming up. Next week is a special meeting. That's our Chapter 70 workshop. Joint meeting with the Board of Selectmen and School Committee. That will be here February 4th, 7 o'clock p.m., and will be televised. On February 11th is our regularly scheduled meeting, and we'll be receiving the town manager's preliminary budget presentation. And then February 18th is a special meeting, 7 o'clock here at Town Hall, where we begin the department budget reviews. We have police and fire on tap. Do we have anything else for this evening? Do we have any comments from the public? No. Anything else from the committee?
No, sir.
Nope.
I'll accept the motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
None opposed. I have 8:08.